Step number 2 is exploring the background information about your area of interest. Simply, it is known as literature review. Literature review is relatively difficult, time consuming, but remember, it's the most important step that you have to perform for the sake of selecting your topic for research. It is the literature review that will tell you what is already known in this area. It is the literature review which will tell you what the earlier researchers have discovered, what factors are involved in this area, what are the concepts involved in this area, what different methodologies have been used in the research in this area, and what are the questions that still require answers. In other words, what are the unanswered questions in this area? What are the aspects of this area which still require further inquiry? So it's the literature review which will help you identify the gap in the existing research. Let me give you another tip for identifying the gap. I call it literature review mapping the literature review. What you need to do, collect as much literature on the area of your interest as possible. Then what you need to do is try to highlight the title and major sections within the existing research. Once you can highlight the major sections within research, then you need to put it on a paper and try to create a kind of map. Keeping in view the example of poverty, I have already generated such a map for you, literature map for you. So you begin with, for example, while exploring the existing research, you found that generally researchers started with definition of poverty, nature of poverty, history of poverty, theories of poverty, causes of poverty, impacts, blah, 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 so many things. So just put them on paper. Once you have developed that literature map, what you can do? Look at impacts and try to think of an impact that exists on ground but is not available in this list. If you can figure out such an impact of the poverty that exists on ground but actually is not available in this list, you can figure out a cause of poverty which really exists on ground in reality, in other words, but that cause is not mentioned in this list. So that means this is a gap. This existing research is missing a cause, existing research is missing an impact. Generally, it rarely happens. However, what happens actually most oftenly, that is that some of the areas are overexplored, some areas are explored, but still there remains space for further exploration. Now see, within the causes, one of the causes is poor governance. If we further explain governance with respect to poverty, we can identify several aspects of governance. Let's say one of the aspects, I'm telling all this as a dummy exercise. One of the aspects of governance which affects poverty negatively is the model of the economy. For example, you see your eyes stick on a particular point. That is export-oriented economy. And you feel now it's the time to use your imagination. It's time to use your imagination. And at the end of this second step, we also do another thing, which is also part of the second step. That is what we call thesis statement. We use imagination and try to develop a thesis statement. We look at poverty, we look at export-oriented economy. So we say that there is a link between export-oriented economy and poverty. Most of the developed states have huge exports and limited imports. Where there is a positive difference, where there are more exports than imports, poverty is lower in such states. So you see, we are trying to build an argument that more the exports, lower the poverty. So we develop an argument that in the case of Pakistan, export-oriented economic model. Economic model is probably the key for eradication of poverty. This is what we call it. This is a kind of claim that you are making on the problem, that is poverty. So we are making a claim, we are taking a position. That position is known as your thesis statement. Thesis statement is very important. It is thesis statement, I put it like this. Thesis statement is the spirit of your entire thesis. Thesis statements generally reflects in the title of your research paper, research thesis. So from here what we acquired is that export oriented economy can help eradicate poverty in Pakistan. So this is your thesis statement. Now from here you need to try to phrase your title. Again, imagination. What you need to do? We try to finalize our title by 3 types of writings. Firstly, you should try for a longer phrase that can capture the entire idea. For example, role of export-oriented economy in eradication of poverty. Then you should try for a shorter one, and then you should try for keywords available within the title. So the keywords will be in this case export-oriented economy and poverty. It is here that our second step ends, and on the basis of literature review, you try to develop a map. That map helps you in identifying the gap. It also helps you in identifying the thrust, the spirit of your work, of your research work. And it also helps you in the development of your thesis statement. And that thesis statement actually helps you in writing your title. Once you are ready with a working title, then we move on to next step.